Welcome to the Juice Radio Talk Show. 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 Reality TV's church reviews. Let's talk happy love and marriage lifestyle. Come and talk with us. Come and share with us. Come and laugh with us. Come on and pray with us.
Regina Clovis, special guest. You should be following your lead. Bless. Subscribe on YouTube. Listen on podcasts. We live on IG and Facebook. This episode is sponsored by Truth and Triumph Ministries.
Good evening. This is Executive Pastor Tawana Grant, and I want to welcome you again today to another episode of Money Monday, where we are continuing in our series on making strategic money moves. And so we hope that you are joining us today. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe, hit that reminder bell. Make sure if you're on Facebook to like and to share. We're so excited that you are joining us on today. And so this again is Money Monday. It is your lunchtime learning with Executive Pastor Tawana Grant. And so we're so excited to continue in our series as we talk about being strategic this year. We are in the month of June. We're coming to the halfway point of 2025. And so we want to make sure that you are making the right decisions to move and advance your business, to move and advance your ministry. And so today's topic, we're really going to be talking about something that is very key for most of us, and that is having some strategic alignments. How do we use partnership? How do we use partnership as a strategy? Because we want to make sure that we are leveraging all the tools that we have as we move along in the business. And how many know, I say all the time that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with your team. And so even as we are operating in our different capacities, in our different fields and study, partnership isn't just collaboration. Partnership is multiplication. I want to encourage you that it's not just collaboration. It's not just working with someone or working with another business or working with a team, but really partnership is looking at it from a perspective and having a different lens that I am going to multiply my capacity. I'm going to multiply my ability to reach those that I'm able to touch. And so if you want to remember that, make sure that you remember, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And so this is so important. It sets the stage for offense and defensive strategies in partnership. You can be on the offense as well as the defense when you look at strategic partnerships. So you want to identify. How do I identify? How do I look for someone who is going to be a great alignment? This is what I always say. You're looking for the best fit. There are others that could be a fit, but when you're looking at strategic alignment, when you're looking at ones who are going along the journey with you, you're looking for the best fit. So some of the things that you want to consider, right? We're talking about partnership as a strategy. Listen, when you're an innovator, when you're a visionary, when you're a leader, you're thinking about strategy. How do I plan my way to my target end state? And so one of the things you want to talk about and think about when you're looking at strategic alignment, looking at partnership as a strategy, does this potential partner align with my mission and vision? The mission and vision of my organization, the mission and vision of our church, the mission and vision of my assignment in the earth is a strategic alignment. You've got to understand, are they going to align to what you are trying to advance? Do you have the same mission and vision? Sometimes you have different processes, different ways of doing things, but are we going the same direction? How can two walk together except they be agreed? You want to make sure that we're going on the same path. One, do they complement your strengths or fill a gap? Sometimes when you're looking for a strategic partner, you're looking for someone who will complement what you're trying to do, who comes along as an addition, who adds and gives benefit. And then sometimes you're looking for that strategic alignment and partnership because they're filling a gap that you don't have, because they add strength. That is so imperative. Sometimes we got to remember we're not in competition to the degree that we're not looking to move forward. We have to connect with others so that we don't silo ourselves out and miss opportunities. You don't want to miss an opportunity because there's fear within us about our capacity or our efficiency or what we can do, and you feel like you're becoming into competition. No, you want to work with others who have that same collaborative idea, who have that same sense of multiplication. They got to have a sense. They got to have a sense of discernment. They got to understand what you're doing, that we're moving along together, that we're trying to advance this together, and that we're not competing against one another. We're bringing our collaborative efforts together to move and advance our mission and vision. So here, do they have a strength I need? Are they adding strength to what I'm already doing? You got to make sure it doesn't degrade your mission or degrade your brand. We've talked about before brand image, how important it is to make sure that when you are strategically aligning yourself with others, they are going to enhance your brand. They're not going to degrade it or bring negativity or bring your integrity into question. Oh, that's good. If you're taking notes, you need to put that down. You don't want to align with anything or anyone that could potentially bring your integrity into question. You have to be on the lookout for things that could seem unprofitable for you, right? And so when you're looking for alignment, you want to look for one to add strength. Their brand brings confidence. Their brand brings integrity. Their brand brings an onset of benefits and not negativity. And so are they going to fill a gap, or are they bringing me strength by aligning them to me? Sometimes they bring a gap of wisdom and knowledge. Sometimes we need to combine with someone who knows more than you do in your field of study, because you can learn from their past. Sometimes their plan that got them through will be your strategy. Sometimes some of their experience is what is going to help you prevent you from falling in some of the gaps of life. Sometimes it's just a natural course of doing business. And when it's a natural course of doing business, you need someone who's been there and done that. Yes, you need someone where you can learn from their wisdom. Next, you want to look at, when you're looking at evaluating a good, when you're looking at and evaluating, is this the right partner? You want to think about what values do they operate from. That's so important. It speaks to their integrity. It speaks to their confidence and trust in what they're doing. Also, it speaks to their resilience, because a lot of times when you're operating from a posture of value and passion and integrity, it can help you solidify your business even during those seasons where things are rough. Even during those seasons where you are growing and learning, you're still able to remain intact. Have your brand, your confidence, your purpose, your integrity intact, even when you're going in rough decisions. And that means that you won't make decisions just because they're easy. I can't tell you how many times as a visionary, as a minister leader, as a business owner, you have to make decisions that are not always comfortable, and sometimes that are always not popular. You want to be on purpose, not popularity. And so sometimes you have to make sure that you're aligning yourself with the right time of partnership so that you can move forward in the vision, because a lot of times when we go into partnership, we're always thinking about the best case scenario. Oh my goodness, we're always thinking about the best thing that can happen. You also need to have an awareness and a mindset that sometimes things do happen, and can we stand the test together? Can we go through this trial together? Do we know how to collaborate and multiply in such a way that even during our lean time or even during our stressful time, we're able to continue forward? Welcome. Thank you, Pastor Evans, for joining us today. Also, you want to think about, how do they treat their clients? Because however they treat their clients, that's the same way they're going to treat you. And that's the same way they're going to treat your clients. You need to get some references. You need to get some reviews. You need to have discernment and an understanding and clarity about this partnership. How are we going to operate together? How do they treat money? Oh my goodness, that is so imperative. Because I've learned if people are not judicious in their own finances, then it is very difficult for them to have the same value with yours. Listen, write that down. If they are not judicious, if they're not trustworthy with their own financial fiduciary role for their organization and for their ministry, then it's very difficult for them to have the onset to be that way with yours. They have to have the mindset that that is how they operate, that is how they move and how they maneuver and how they engage and how they interact. It is a natural part of who they are, because it's very different to try and change somebody. You don't have that kind of time. When you're looking for a strategic partnership, you're looking for somebody who is already on the path with you so that you can grow and go together. Yes, if they don't grow, they can't go. You want to go and grow together. You already have momentum. You already have movement. And so now you want to have advancement. Yes, advancement. You can have movement without being advancing. So you want to be able to have movement and momentum and advance your purpose forward. So this is so important. How do they treat their clients? How do they treat money? And how do they treat people? This is so important because when you're doing a partnership alignment, you want to have your own matrix so that you have things to cue off of. You don't want to go off of feelings. We've talked about that. You want to have data. You want to have data that you make your decisions from because then they are solidified. You want to have something that you can refer back to. And one of those things that you want to have is create your own partnership matrix. What is the list of your vision, your mission, your values, your products, and how do they compare in comparison to the group or opportunity or organization that you're looking to collaborate with? And how do you assess that synergy? Meaning, how do we achieve more together than we can apart? Isn't that good? You want to ask yourself, how can we together achieve more? How can we together advance further? How can we together add more benefits than we can doing it apart? And so those are some of the things that you want to look at when you're looking at potential alignment. How do we come together in such a way that I'm advancing you and you're advancing me? We're iron sharpening iron. We're pouring, and we're receiving. It is reciprocal. You don't want to be in a partnership where the other partner is getting everything and you're the only one pouring out. No, it should be reciprocal. Whatever you're sowing, you ought to be reaping it back. You ought to be gleaning. You ought to be growing. You ought to be evolving, and you ought to be advancing. So you have to think about that. So even as you talk about forming the partnership, so now as you thought about who you would like to engage with, as you thought about who would make a great partner, a best fit, that's what I'm saying. We can oftentimes have good fits, but who's the best fit? Who's going to really take you the farthest together? So once you do that, you want to clarify your goals. So once you're coming together and you're having these conversations, come together and reason. Don't be too quick to make key decisions without having done your assessment, without giving a moment to understand and clarify and to have conversation, right? And to know each other's heart and to know each other's intentions, right? And so even when you do that, some of the key steps as you form the partnership is to ensure that you have clarity. It says that in all you're getting understanding. You want to have clarity. I want to understand my role and your role. So you want to clarify, what are your goals? Short term and long term. What are the goals? Define roles between yourself and the other organization leader, and then your roles within your teams. What are the responsibilities within our teams? What are the responsibilities between us as leaders? How do we handle our decision-making process? How do we operate in such a way that we can make decisions and we both leave in a good spirit? Sometimes we come in partnership and we feel like it's either a win or lose. No, it should be a win-win situation. We should come out of this always looking for the win-win. And that doesn't always mean that someone always has to have, sometimes being right is not necessarily the right thing when you're partnering. Sometimes you have to collaborate and you can't always have the only say. So this is a hard thing. If you have difficulty in collaboration with others, if you have difficulty in hearing other people out, if you have difficulty in understanding the purview of the lens of the other person you're working through, you might want to consider waiting on partnering, because it is a critical character that you must have in order to partner well. You have to be a listener. You have to be engaging. You have to be entreating. You have to be able to hear other perspectives. You have to be able to assess information and see what would be the best decision. You also need to be a good communicator, because you've got to be able to communicate even your own vision and mission. You've got to be able to understand in such a way that others can understand your vision, not just you. You've got to be able to clarify what you're trying to do and then make a good decision-making process so that there is always order, even when you disagree. So there are opportunities where you may not have the best answer. And you've got to be willing in partnership to be able to concede when things are better done a different way. And so when we have that kind of difficulty within us, and it's natural, when you're type A, a person who likes to lead, you're normally in that capacity all the time. But when you're going into partnership, you now have another voice to be considered. Can I say that? You now have another lens, another perspective that needs to be considered and weighted in every decision. So you want to make sure that even as you're doing partnerships, that you're doing it from a legal perspective, right? That you're looking at what you own, your IP, some of your intelligence that you're bringing to the table. You want to make sure that you have that denoted so that there is no perception of vagueness or ambiguity in the relationship. You know what's yours, you know what's theirs, and you know what is the collaborative effort of you both coming together. You want to think about how do you share revenue, right? You want to make sure that this is all documented, that this is understood so that it relieves a lot of the tension that can come about when you start to fly, when you start to have success, when you start to soar, because a lot of times we don't even think about that. We always think about we're in the task now, we're doing the work. How do we share in the work, but also how do we share in the benefits? How do we share when things turn and we start making money and we start getting the revenue we projected? Now, how do we share in that to be fair? Sometimes it's not always equal. Oh my goodness, I have this conversation with mentees all the time. They're like, well, I want equal. Well, wait a minute, you have to be fair. Because if it wasn't equal giving, it can't be equal distribution. Where's the fairness? So there's a difference between equality and fairness, because to whom much is given, much is required. And so when you give a lot, the expectation is that you will get more, you'll receive more than those who have had a minimal distribution, a minimal input rather, so that when they get their distribution, they've gained their fair share. They've gained their fair share. And so you really want to think about that, whether you want to do a partnership agreement, whether you want to do IP ownership, and especially talking about how do you want to share in the revenue. That needs to be explicit in your contract, explicit in your understanding, right? And also, I know we don't like to talk about this, but you also need to make sure that you have an exit clause. How do we, if we have a situation or the time is right, because notice, even if you set up an agreement today, in a different season, that may not be the best fit anymore. It may not be the best fit for you. It may not be the best fit for them. So as you grow your business and you're going through these different seasons, you always want to make a way of escape. You always want to make a way out, and to do so when it's good. When you make those kind of strategies and decisions up front when it's good, it eliminates the stress and what could happen in the damaging of the relationship for the future. Let's talk about how do we today remediate when it's time to exit, or if we need a dispute resolution process. How do we handle that when we come to the part in our relationship when we need to part ways? Because you can't just shake hands and feel like that's going to be enough. You need to make sure that it is documented, that it's written, that it is understood by both parties, and then that it is agreed. And the best way to do that, the very, very best way to do that is in the beginning. Think about the end in the beginning before you even get started. We're talking about the strategy of partnership. And so even in the strategy of partnership, there's a lot of good that comes from it. But there's also an opportunity when there's time to part ways. People are always leaving. People will always have an opportunity to do something new. Even in your own life, there are times when you don't want to keep doing the same thing. You want to do something new. And so you want to make sure that you have had that conversation, that you've made it clear, that there's clarity in the relationship about how do we now resolve? How do we exit, and have that exit strategy already written out in the partnership plan so that you can execute when the time is right. Now you want to talk about, as you come together, how do you create a revenue stream together? Because sometimes in partnership, you already have something going. They already have something going. You both have an idea about how you can have a new revenue stream, another channel. And so you want to think about, do we co-brand it? Right? Do we do some bundle pricing? So these are some of the ideas that you want to think about as you're going into a partnership as a strategy. Do we look at it now that we're going to brand something new as a collaborative effort? Is it that we're going to do a new product? Are we going to do a new product together? Are we going to do a new service together? Or do we do a bundle pricing? Meaning, if I'm doing financial services and you're a tax service, how do we now combine together so that we both win? Is that bundle pricing by using your consulting service and using my tax service, that now the client will benefit by our joint venture. So you really want to think about that. Is there a joint venture by which we could now offer out to more client base and receive additional revenue, right? So you want to look at joint ventures, online courses. If there's something that you want to do together online, that is a wonderful place to get started. So you want to advertise. So you want to look at these kind of joint events where you can operate together and then make it a tandem win. How do we win together? So you really want to thrive in your task. You want to thrive in what you're doing together. You want to have momentum together. You definitely want to make sure, how do I handle conflict? This is so key, because when you have two people who have different mindsets, two different ways of doing things, it is automatic that there's going to have some constraints in that there's going to be some contention at times. But know this, challenge is good. Sometimes it will push you to think a different way. It will push you to do things differently. So notice, conflict is not always bad. Conflict is necessary to grow. It is the push and the pull of what was old to what is new. And so when you're doing a new thing, don't think it's strange when you start to have some conflict. When you even start to have conflict in the processes or the procedures, because you're taking the way you used to do it, and now you're formulating something new. And so the in between, the process from going from what was old to what was new, sometimes create conflict automatically. So it is a natural and normal process of growing the business. As a visionary, as a leader, as a ministry leader, you have to get comfortable with conflict. When you're dealing with people, processes, products, operations, vendors, stakeholders, partners, it will necessitate that you understand conflict is normal. When we operate from that kind of posture, we're not so easily moved. We're not so easily agitated. We're not so easily angered. We're not so easily upset. This is so imperative if you're going into a partnership, that you have to have self-control. You have to be able to manage yourself. And so one of the things is how to handle conflict without having collateral damage. How do you handle conflict? Oh my goodness. How do you have a conflict without having collateral damage? How do you do that? How do you have it where we don't have big blow-ups, where we don't have big fallouts, where we don't have big disputes, where it cuts off the relationship? It hinders what you initially started. It hindered the vision of moving the businesses forward. And so you don't want to disrupt what you're trying to build. Sometimes because we don't know how to handle conflict, we disrupt where we're trying to go. And so you want to understand, how do I handle conflict without creating collateral damage? And so this is so imperative, because one thing you want to do, there's some tips, right? Not exhaustive, but these are some of the things that you can do in your mindset. Have regular check-ins, check-in meetings, so that you can stay in alignment. Don't let it go weeks and months without connecting with your partner, because you want to make sure you understand how they're feeling, how things are working for them, how their organization, their team are handling the changes. Are the teams collaborating well together? You want to get a pulse check. Why? So that you can make some minor shifts. You don't want to wait till it is a number 10. You want to catch any conflict or pivot moves that are necessary when it's at 1, 2, and 3. When you get to 10, 9, and 10, it creates collateral damage and sometimes a lasting impact in the relationship. So have regular check-ins, weekly, bi-weekly is the longest I would like to go. Have a conversation, check in, make sure we're on the same page, make sure we're going the right way. Sometimes if you need to, have a neutral third party to mediate any major disagreements. Have someone else to come in to help and facilitate, to make sure that the organizations are moving forward. A lot of times, maybe that is somebody who's on the board, or somebody who is a peer that you both know, or somebody who is a field study expert, who knows your field or your industry, what you're working in, is an expert, and who can share from their expertise. biblically, or if you're in ministry who has a biblical authority, have understanding and clarity and discernment, can help you walk through these stages so that you come out both healed and whole on the other end. That's what you want to do. You want to come out healed and whole on the other end. And so also, this is so key. This is so key. I put this in my notes. Make sure that you assume positive intent. Don't ignore red flags. So if you see something, say something. If you see something happening and you don't like it, or it doesn't sit well, or you don't have peace about it, that is the time to say something. Don't wait until you are disruptive. Don't wait until it is a boiling point. Say, assume positive intent. So just know if they're in the business, they want to be with you. Maybe it's their way of doing things. Maybe it's the way that they think that has made them have this kind of decision or make this kind of pivot move. You need to have those kind of conversations to say, I know you weren't intending to have this happen this way or having me feel this way, but here's how I'm feeling now. And so when you assume positive intent, you can go in it, the conversation with the right posture, with the right demeanor, with the right communication stance, instead of one of assuming that damage was intended. And so that's why it's so important that, one, we always assume positive intent, because first of all, you've already done the first stages, which is to make sure you've looked for the best fit. You've already did your assessment. You already did your matrix, and you've already did your checks and balances, and you both have come in agreement that this is a good fit. That's your number one that you can stand on. We set off in this in the right posture. Two, that you've had the opportunity to have a contract, so you know how to handle dispute, you know how to work through the exchange of the operations and day-to-day dealings with one another and your organization. So you set the roadmap. You just hit a speed bump. And so when you assume positive intent, you look at it that this is just a speed bump. Let's come back together. Let's reason together. Let's come to an understanding. Let's see where we were getting off track and put us back on track. And then don't ignore red flags, because that is your immediate opportunity to do corrective measures. That is your immediate opportunity to have clarity on where we need to pivot. And so when you have as a defensive for wisdom, right? We're talking about offensive. A defensive for wisdom is to make sure that you create a risk plan. What happens if one party fails to deliver, or one party decides that they don't want to do something, or one party has a situation within their major business that creates or spills over into your collaborative work? How do you handle those? And so having a risk mitigation plan ahead of time will help you understand where you need to pull and push on your levers within the relationship. What do we need to draw back on this? Or what do we need to push up on this one? Because we've already had our mitigation conversations, because we've already created our risk plan, it is not a difficulty to be able to be agile, to have agility to move when necessary, because we've already thought it through. We've already thought it through. We've already come to an understanding. And so here's how we want to move forward to grow the vision as we get ready to close out today. Create and celebrate quick wins together. Anytime when you're collaborating with a partner and you have a quick win, make sure that you celebrate it together. Make sure you acknowledge each other for their part that they played in the win. It is a team win. And so make sure that you're appreciating both sides of the organizations in the partnership, both the leaders as well as their team. Make sure, again, that you're communicating these wins, because people want to feel value. They want to know that what they're doing is adding to the goal and is adding to the benefits of where we want to go as a team. Next, communicate impact jointly to customers or your fellowship. If something is changing that is not only a benefit, because we're quick to announce benefits, we're quick to announce wins. Make sure also, if it is going to have a slowdown or a negative impact or influence to your constituents, to your customers, to your congregants, to your fellowship, that you're also communicating that. Why? Because communication keeps the clarity open, where people are going to have open dialogue and discussion. It eliminates the questions and the formations of their own narrative. You want to eliminate people creating their own narrative because you're not communicating. So as a leader, we have to communicate. So we want to make sure as we move together, as we're growing the vision as a partnership, as we're collaborating, one of the things on offensive as well as defensive is to communicate both the positive as well as the negative. So people know, yes, this is happening, but here's how we're addressing it. Yes, this may be negative, but here's how, one, we are aware. Two, we are addressing it. And three, here's where we're going to go with it. So that they understand that people are managing the situation and it is not up for question. And then as you partner together, consider what is your long-term legacy. Are we building something together that's going to last? Are we building something? Are we building something together that we want to last? You want to think about that. As you operate in partnership, as you grow, think about where you're going next. We always talk about that. You're not just starting something, you want to finish it. So here, final strategies, make sure again that you're being proactive. Make sure you're pitching to win-win partnership. Pitch a win-win partnership because this is going to ensure that you get the right fit. You want the best fit. And then use your platform not only for you, but to open doors for others. Remember, the rising tide lifts all boats. So even as we go up, we want to bring others with us. Thank you for joining us today for our Money Monday Lunchtime Learning. I'm Executive Pastor Tawana Grant. I hope you have gleaned today as we talked about partnerships as a strategy, how you can use it as your offense and defense to make strategic money moves. Peace and blessings to you. God bless you.